The courtroom smelled like old wood and broken promises. Naomi sat perfectly still in her chair, her hands folded on the table in front of her, her spine straight despite the weight pressing down on her shoulders. She wore a navy blue dress that cost more than most people's monthly rent, but money didn't matter anymore. Nothing mattered except the words coming from Judge Crawford's mouth. After careful consideration of the prenuptial agreement signed by both parties, the judge said, his voice echoing in the nearly empty courtroom, and taking into account the financial contributions of both spouses during the marriage, this court awards the petitioner, Trevor Blackwood, full ownership of Blackwood Industries and all associated assets. Naomi felt her lawyer's hand touch her arm, but she couldn't move, couldn't breathe, couldn't process what she was hearing. The respondent, Naomi Blackwood, will receive alimony payments of $15,000 monthly for a period of 3 years, after which all financial obligations will cease. The prenuptial agreement is upheld in full. No company shares will be transferred. No additional assets beyond those specified in the agreement will be divided. Across the aisle, Trevor leaned back in his leather chair, and Naomi saw the corner of his mouth lift. That same smile he gave her on their wedding day 10 years ago. That same smile he probably gave Rebecca, his assistant, the woman he'd been sleeping with for God knows how long. She wanted to stand up. Wanted to scream that this wasn't fair, that she'd built that company alongside him, that she'd sacrificed her own career as a graphic designer to support his dreams. But her throat closed up, and all she could do was sit there while Judge Crawford finished destroying her life. Both parties are ordered to finalize asset transfers within 90 days. This court is adjourned. The gavel came down like a gunshot. Naomi's lawyer, Patricia, immediately started talking about appeals and next steps, but the words bounced off Naomi like rain on glass. She watched Trevor stand up and button his suit jacket, the Tom Ford jacket she'd given him for his 40th birthday last year. He turned and caught her eye, and for a moment, something flickered across his face. Regret? Guilt? But then Rebecca appeared beside him, her hands sliding into his, and whatever humanity had been there vanished. Rebecca wore a cream dress that hugged her pregnant belly. She wasn't showing much yet, maybe 4 months along, but everyone in that courtroom knew. The affair that started 2 years ago. The baby that Trevor wanted more than he wanted his marriage. The future that didn't include Naomi. Mrs. Blackwood, Patricia said more firmly. Naomi, we need to talk about the next steps. I need to call my brother, Naomi whispered. She'd been trying to reach Dante for 3 days. He was in Singapore working on some big finance deal, and the time difference made everything complicated. But she needed to hear his voice. Needed someone to tell her this nightmare would end. Trevor walked past her table without looking at her. Rebecca stayed close to his side, her diamond engagement ring catching the fluorescent lights. That ring cost more than the alimony Naomi would receive in an entire year. The prenup was signed fairly, Patricia said once they were alone in the courtroom. I'm sorry, but the judge ruled correctly according to the law. You signed away your rights to the company assets. I signed it the week after my father died, Naomi said quietly. I was planning a funeral and a wedding at the same time. Trevor said we needed to protect the business and I trusted him. Patricia's face softened. I know. And I wanted to argue undue influence, but without concrete proof that he coerced you, the judge wouldn't consider it. Naomi stood up slowly, her legs shaking. Everything she'd built for 10 years was gone. The company she'd named. The brand she'd designed. The life she'd crafted with careful precision. Trevor had taken it all with a prenup and a team of expensive lawyers who knew how to twist the truth. What do I do now? She asked. You take the alimony. You move forward. You start over. Start over. At 38 years old, with $45,000 a year in alimony and the condo Trevor had agreed to let her keep, the one-bedroom place they'd bought as an investment property, not even their actual home. Start over from nothing while he kept the penthouse, the beach house, the company, and the woman carrying his child. Naomi walked out of the courtroom into the bright June afternoon. Chicago traffic roared past the courthouse steps. People hurried by with coffee cups and cell phones, living their normal lives while hers crumbled into dust. She pulled out her phone and tried Dante's number again. Straight to voicemail. He was probably in a meeting. Probably closing another multimillion-dollar deal for the investment firm he worked for in Asia. Her little brother had done so well for himself after leaving Chicago 5 years ago. She was proud of him even if she barely understood what he did anymore. Something about international finance and venture capital. This is Dante. Leave a message. It's me, Naomi said, her voice breaking. It's over. He won. Trevor got everything. The judge upheld the prenup and she stopped, unable to continue. I need you to call me. Please. I need to hear your voice. She hung up and stood on those courthouse steps for a long time, watching the city move around her. Somewhere in a fancy restaurant, Trevor was probably celebrating with Rebecca and his lawyers. Somewhere in that city, people were getting engaged and married and making promises to each other. Promises that would break just like hers did. Naomi's phone buzzed. She grabbed it desperately, hoping it was Dante, but it was just Patricia asking her to come back to the office to sign some final papers. 1 hour, she thought. 1 hour ago, Judge Crawford had ended her marriage and her future. 1 hour ago, everything had fallen apart. She didn't know that in exactly 1 hour, everything would change again. Patricia's office was small and cluttered with legal books and case files. Naomi sat in the same chair she'd sat in dozens of times over the past 6 months, signing papers she barely understood while Patricia explained what each one meant. This time the papers were final. The divorce decree. The asset transfer forms. The documents that made her poverty official. You need to set up a separate bank account, Patricia was saying. Trevor's team will transfer the first alimony payment within 10 days. After that, it'll come on the first of each month for 3 years. 3 years. $45,000 a year. That was less than what Trevor spent on his car payments. What about the condo? Naomi asked. It's yours free and clear. No mortgage. He signed the deed transfer this morning. Patricia slid another paper across the desk. Small blessing, but at least you have a place to live. A 500 square foot 1-bedroom in Lincoln Park. It was nice enough, but it wasn't the 3,000 square foot penthouse overlooking Lake Michigan that she'd called home for 8 years. It wasn't the home where she'd hosted charity dinners and business parties. Where she dreamed of raising children before Trevor told her he didn't want kids. With her. Naomi's phone rang. She looked down at the screen and her heart jumped. Dante's name flashed with a Singapore country code. I need to take this, she said, already standing up. Of course. Take your time. Naomi walked out into the hallway and answered the call. Dante. Naomi. His voice came through clear despite being halfway around the world. What happened? And just like that she broke. All the strength she'd been holding onto in the courtroom, all the composure she'd maintained while signing away her life, it all shattered. She slid down the wall in that law office hallway and cried while telling her brother everything. He won, she sobbed. The judge upheld the prenup. Trevor gets the company, the house, everything. I get $45,000 a year for 3 years and the investment condo. That's it. 10 years of marriage and that's all I get. Dante was quiet for a long moment. When he finally spoke, his voice had changed. It was cold. Controlled. The voice of someone doing calculations in their head. Tell me about the prenup. When exactly did you sign it? The week before the wedding. Right after Dad's funeral. And Trevor pressured you to sign? He said we needed to protect the business. Said it was standard for entrepreneurs. I was so tired, Dante. I was planning Dad's memorial and trying to finalize wedding details and I signed it. Who witnessed the signature? Trevor's lawyer at the time. Some guy named Gerald Hoffman. Naomi heard typing in the background. Dante was already looking something up. What about the judge? He asked. Judge Crawford. Tell me about him. I don't know anything about him. He seemed fair during the hearings, but today he sided with Trevor on everything. Patricia said there wasn't enough evidence to challenge the prenup. More typing. Dante was silent for almost a minute. Naomi, I need you to send me every document you have. The prenup, the divorce filing, all discovery documents, the judge's ruling, everything. Send it to my email right now. What? Dante, it's over. The judge ruled. I can't afford to keep fighting. Just send me the documents. You're in Singapore. You can't. I'll be home tonight. Naomi stopped crying. What? I'm getting on a plane in 3 hours. I'll be in Chicago by tonight. Send me everything and don't talk to Trevor or his lawyers. Don't sign anything else. Don't make any decisions. Wait for me. Dante, you don't have to drop everything in. He took advantage of you when Dad died, Dante said, and his voice was sharp now. He made you sign that prenup when you were grieving and vulnerable. He cheated on you for years. He hid assets. And now he thinks he won. He did win. The judge said so. The judge is wrong. Dante paused. Or the judge is dirty. I'll find out which. Send me those documents now, Naomi. This isn't over. I can't ask you to leave your job and fly across the world for. You're my sister. You raised me after Mom died. You put me through college. You believed in me when nobody else did. I'm coming home and we're going to fix this. Naomi closed her eyes and leaned her head back against the wall. She wanted to believe him. Wanted to think that somehow this could be fixed. But she'd seen the look on Trevor's face in that courtroom. She'd seen him walk away with Rebecca. Seen the judge sign those papers. How? She whispered. How can we fix it? Leave that to me. Just send the documents and I'll handle the rest. I don't understand. You work in finance. You're not a lawyer. No, Dante said. But I know people who are. And I know how to follow money. Trevor made mistakes, Naomi. He had to. Men like him always do. We're going to find those mistakes and we're going to use them. Judge Crawford already ruled. You can't just overturn a verdict. Watch me, Dante said. I'll call you when I land. Stay strong. This isn't over. Not even close. He hung up before she could respond. Naomi sat in that hallway holding her phone, trying to process what had just happened. Her brother was flying home from Singapore. He thought he could overturn the verdict. He sounded so certain, so confident, so different from the kid she'd raised after their mother died of cancer 15 years ago. Patricia poked her head out of her office. Everything okay? My brother is coming home, Naomi said slowly. He thinks we can challenge the verdict. Patricia's expression was sympathetic but realistic. Naomi, appeals are expensive and rarely successful. The prenup was legally binding. I'm sorry, but you need to accept. Send me digital copies of everything, Naomi interrupted, standing up. All the documents. The prenup, the filings, the discovery, the ruling. Everything we have. What are you planning? I don't know yet. But my brother asked for them and he's flying halfway around the world to help me. The least I can do is send him the documents. Patricia hesitated, then nodded. I'll email them within the hour. But Naomi, please don't get your hopes up. The legal system rarely changes its mind. Naomi thought about Dante's voice on the phone. That cold certainty. That quiet rage. Maybe, she said. But Trevor made a mistake when he thought this was over. He forgot that I have a brother who doesn't give up. Who doesn't back down. Who's been waiting 5 years to come home and help me. She walked back into Patricia's office and finished signing the papers. But something had changed. 1 hour ago, she'd left that courtroom defeated. Now she had hope. Small and fragile but real. Trevor had won in court 1 hour ago. But Dante was coming home. And everything was about to change. Dante knocked on the door at 9 p.m. Naomi had been sitting in the tiny condo living room for hours, surrounded by boxes she hadn't unpacked yet. Trevor had given her 1 week to move out of the penthouse. She'd taken only her personal belongings, clothes, photos, the few pieces of art she'd bought before the marriage. Everything else belonged to him now. She opened the door and barely recognized her brother. 5 years ago, Dante had left Chicago as a 23-year-old kid with big dreams and a finance degree. He'd been skinny and nervous, excited about his job offer in Hong Kong but scared to leave his sister behind. Now he stood in her doorway wearing a suit that probably cost $5,000, his shoulders broader, his face harder, his eyes sharp and calculating. Dante, she breathed. He pulled her into a hug without saying anything. She broke down again, crying into his expensive shirt while he held her steady. I'm here, he said quietly. It's going to be okay. They sat on her second-hand couch. She'd had to buy new furniture since everything in the penthouse belonged to Trevor, and Dante pulled out his laptop. I read everything you sent me on the plane, he said. The prenup, the divorce filings, all of it. Tell me about the judge. Judge Crawford. He's been on the bench for 15 years. Patricia said he has a good reputation. Did Trevor know him before the case? I don't think so. Why? Dante pulled up something on his laptop and turned it toward her. It was a photo from a country club website showing Judge Crawford and a man named Richard Thornton on a golf course. Richard Thornton was Trevor's lead attorney, Dante said. This photo was taken 3 weeks before your final hearing. According to the club records, they've played golf together 6 times in the past 4 months. Naomi stared at the photo. That's not legal. That's judicial misconduct, Dante finished. A judge isn't supposed to socialize with attorneys who have cases before him. At minimum, it's an ethics violation. At maximum, it's grounds to overturn the verdict. How did you find this? I know people. Dante scrolled through more documents. I also had my team start looking into Trevor's finances. The prenup says the company was started with his personal funds and that you contributed no initial capital. Is that true? No. I put in $50,000 from my inheritance when Dad died. It was all the money I had, but Trevor needed it to lease office space and hire the first employees. Is that documented anywhere? Naomi thought hard. I wrote him a check. It was from my personal account. Do you have bank statements from that time? Somewhere. In storage maybe. She looked at her brother. Dante, what are you thinking? I'm thinking Trevor lied about the company's origins. If you contributed initial capital, the prenup might be invalid because it was based on false premises. I'm also thinking that a man who cheats on his wife probably cheats in business too. He pulled up more documents. Financial records. Bank statements. Corporate filings. I have friends who work in forensic accounting, Dante said. They owed me a favor. I had them do a preliminary scan of Blackwood Industries' public financial records. Naomi, there are irregularities. Money moving through shell companies. Expenses that don't match up with reported revenue. It's not definitive yet, but there's something wrong with Trevor's books. Naomi's head spun. You did all this in one flight? I made calls from the airport in Singapore before I boarded. Then I worked the entire 15-hour flight. I had my assistant coordinate with investigators here in Chicago. They've been working all day. Dante looked at her seriously. I meant what I said. This isn't over. But Judge Crawford already ruled. Then we get a different judge. We file an emergency motion to overturn the verdict based on judicial misconduct. We bring in the evidence of your initial capital contribution. We show that Trevor lied about the company's founding. And while we're at it, we investigate his finances and find out what he's been hiding. That's going to cost a fortune. I can't afford. I can, Dante said simply. I've done well in Singapore, Naomi. Very well. I have money and I have connections. Let me use them. She looked at her little brother, the kid she'd raised after their mother died. The teenager she'd helped with homework and college applications. The young man she'd driven to the airport 5 years ago with tears in her eyes. When did you become this person? She whispered. When I watched my sister sacrifice everything for a man who didn't deserve her, Dante said. When I heard her voice break over the phone telling me she lost everything. When I realized that being good and fair and trusting isn't enough in this world. Sometimes you have to fight. He pulled up another document. This is the name of a law firm that specializes in high-stakes divorce cases and business litigation. They're based here in Chicago. I've already spoken to the senior partner. He's willing to take your case. Dante, I can't ask you to. You're not asking. I'm telling you. We're going to fight this and we're going to win. His eyes were fierce. Trevor thought you were alone. He thought you had no resources and no options. He forgot that you have me. Naomi felt something stir inside her chest. Not just hope. Anger. All this time she'd been trying to be reasonable and fair. Trying to accept what the judge had said. But Dante was right. Trevor had lied to her. Used her. Taken advantage of her when she was grieving her father's death. And now he was walking away with everything while she got scraps. What do we do first? She asked. Dante smiled. It wasn't a warm smile. It was the smile of someone who'd been waiting for this moment. First, we find proof that you contributed capital to the company. Do you remember which bank the check came from? First National. I still have the account. Good. Tomorrow we go to the bank and get 10 years of records. Then we meet with the new legal team and file our motion. After that, we turn over every stone in Trevor's life until we find what he's hiding. He's going to fight back. Let him try. Dante closed his laptop. I've spent 5 years learning how to move money across borders, how to track assets, how to find what people don't want found. Trevor is an amateur compared to the people I deal with every day. He has no idea what's coming. Naomi looked around her tiny condo, then back at her brother. 1 hour after the verdict, he'd called. Now he was here and everything felt different. She wasn't alone anymore. She wasn't helpless. Thank you, she said quietly. Don't thank me yet, Dante replied. Thank me when we take him down. They stayed up until midnight going through documents, making lists and building their strategy. And for the first time since she'd discovered Trevor's affair 8 months ago, Naomi felt like she might actually survive this. More than survive. She might actually win. The law offices of Morrison, Chin and Associates occupied the entire 30th floor of a building in downtown Chicago. Naomi felt small walking into the conference room the next morning, but Dante walked beside her with the confidence of someone who belonged there. James Morrison himself led the meeting. He was 60 years old with white hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. Miss Blackwood, he said, shaking her hand. Your brother has told me about your situation. I've reviewed the documents you sent over. This is one of the most egregious cases of marital misconduct I've seen in 30 years of practice. Can you help me? Naomi asked. I can do better than that. I can destroy Trevor's case completely. Morrison opened a folder. Let's start with the judicial misconduct. My investigator confirmed that Judge Crawford and Richard Thornton, Trevor's lead attorney, are golf partners. They've played together at least 8 times during your divorce proceedings. That alone is grounds for an appeal. But appeals take years, Naomi said. Which is why we're not filing an appeal. We're filing an emergency motion to vacate the verdict based on judicial misconduct. It's faster and more aggressive. We'll file it tomorrow morning. Dante leaned forward. What about the prenup? The prenup is more complicated, but we have angles to attack it. Morrison pulled out another document. Naomi, you told your brother you contributed $50,000 to start the company. Do you have proof? We're going to the bank after this meeting to get my old statements. Good. If we can prove you contributed initial capital, we can argue the prenup was based on fraudulent representations. Trevor claimed the company was solely his creation. If that's a lie, the entire agreement is suspect. A woman walked into the conference room carrying a laptop. Morrison introduced her as Elena Rodriguez, a forensic accountant. I've been looking at Blackwood Industries' financial records, Elena said, opening her laptop. There are significant irregularities. Money flowing through shell companies in the Cayman Islands. Unexplained expenses that don't match any business purpose. And most interesting, a pattern of withdrawals that correspond exactly with the timeline of Mr. Blackwood's affair. She pulled up a spreadsheet. Look at this. 2 years ago, right when Naomi suspects the affair started, there are monthly charges to luxury hotels, restaurants, and jewelry stores. But these expenses are listed as business costs on the company books. That's fraud. Naomi felt her stomach turn. He used company money for his affair? Extensively. Over $200,000 in 2 years. And since you own no shares in the company according to the prenup, he essentially stole from what should have been marital assets to fund his mistress. Morrison smiled grimly. This gets better and better. What else did you find? The shell companies are interesting. They're registered in the Cayman Islands under different names, but they all trace back to Trevor. It looks like he's been hiding income from the IRS for years. Possibly millions of dollars. Dante's expression darkened. So he's not just a cheater. He's a tax fraud. Allegedly, Morrison said carefully. But yes, if these findings are accurate, Trevor has been committing serious financial crimes. We can't prove it yet, but we can certainly make his life difficult while investigating. There's one more thing, Elena said. Rebecca Anderson, the mistress, is pregnant. 4 months along according to social media posts. But look at this. She pulled up a bank statement. 5 months ago, Trevor made a $50,000 payment to a private obstetrics clinic. The timing suggests he's been planning this baby for a while. Possibly even before he filed for divorce. Naomi closed her eyes. She'd suspected Trevor had been planning to leave her for Rebecca, but seeing the evidence laid out so clinically made it worse. He'd calculated everything. The affair. The baby. The divorce. The prenup that would leave her with nothing. He thinks he's won, she said quietly. He thinks wrong, Morrison replied. By the time we're done, Trevor Blackwood will wish he'd never met you. Now let's talk strategy. They spent 3 hours going over every detail of the case. Morrison's team would file the emergency motion tomorrow. Elena would continue her financial investigation with the help of Dante's contacts in Singapore. And Naomi would focus on gathering every piece of evidence she had from the marriage. Emails, text messages, photos, anything that could prove Trevor's deception. One more thing, Morrison said as they were leaving. I need you to prepare yourself. When we file this motion, Trevor is going to panic. He'll try to intimidate you. He'll make threats. He might try to turn your friends against you. Stay strong and don't engage with him directly. Everything goes through me. I understand. Good. Morrison shook her hand again. Your brother hired the right team, Ms. Blackwood. We're going to fix this. After the meeting, Dante took Naomi to First National Bank. She requested 10 years of bank statements, and they sat in a small office while the manager printed everything out. It took an hour to find what they were looking for, but there it was. A check for $50,000 written to Trevor Blackwood on June 15, 15 years ago. 1 week after her father's funeral. 1 week before her wedding. This proves everything, Dante said, holding the statement. You contributed to the company. The prenup is based on lies. Naomi stared at her own signature on that decade-old check. She'd been 23 years old, grieving her father, trusting the man she was about to marry. She'd given him everything and he'd used it to build an empire that he claimed was his alone. "I was so stupid," she whispered. "No," Dante said firmly. "You were in love. You trusted someone who didn't deserve it. That's not stupid. That's human." They took the statements back to Morrison's office. Elena scanned them immediately and added them to the evidence file. "This is perfect," she said. "Combined with the judicial misconduct and the financial fraud, we have a strong case." That night, Naomi couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about Trevor in that courtroom, smiling at her like he'd won. Kept seeing Rebecca's hand in his. Kept hearing Judge Crawford's voice taking away everything she'd built. But now she had Dante. She had Morrison. She had evidence and strategy and hope. She picked up her phone and looked at Trevor's contact. Part of her wanted to text him to tell him that this wasn't over. But Morrison's words echoed in her head. Don't engage with him directly. So instead she deleted his number. Whatever happened next, she didn't need Trevor in her life anymore. Not his voice. Not his lies. Not his memory. She was done being his victim. Now she was going to be his nightmare. Morrison's team worked like a machine. Within 48 hours of hiring them, they'd filed an emergency motion to vacate Judge Crawford's verdict, served Trevor with new discovery requests, and begun coordinating with the Illinois State Bar Association to investigate the judge's relationship with Trevor's attorney. Naomi spent 3 days in Morrison's office going through every document from her marriage. Old emails where Trevor discussed business strategy with her. Text messages where she gave him advice about hiring decisions. Photos of them at company events where she was introduced as his business partner, not just his wife. Every piece of evidence that proved she'd been an active part of building Blackwood Industries, despite what the prenup claimed. Dante worked from his laptop in the corner of the conference room, making calls to his contacts in Singapore, Hong Kong, and London. Forensic accountants who specialized in tracing hidden money. Private investigators who could find offshore accounts. Lawyers who understood international finance law. On the third day, Elena Rodriguez walked in with a thick folder and a grim smile. "We found something," she said. Everyone in the conference room stopped what they were doing. Elena opened the folder and spread out documents on the table. Trevor's shell companies in the Cayman Islands received payments from a Russian investment firm called Volkov Enterprises. Over $5 million in the past 3 years. Volkov Enterprises is currently under investigation by the U.S. Treasury for money laundering. Morrison leaned forward. Trevor took money from a company under federal investigation? He did. And he didn't report it on his tax returns or in his divorce discovery. He hid it completely. Dante pulled up something on his laptop. "I know Volkov Enterprises. They're connected to oligarchs who are currently sanctioned by the U.S. government. If Trevor did business with them, he broke federal law." Naomi felt her heart race. "Are you saying he's a criminal?" "I'm saying he's potentially facing criminal charges if this information gets to the right people," Elena replied. "But more importantly for our case, he committed fraud during the divorce proceedings. He hid millions of dollars in assets. Assets that should have been part of the marital estate." Morrison stood up and started pacing. "This changes everything. We're not just fighting a divorce case anymore. We're exposing financial crimes. Elena, I need you to document every single transaction between Trevor and Volkov Enterprises. Dante, can your contacts confirm the connection to sanctioned oligarchs?" "Already on it," Dante said, typing rapidly. "Naomi," Morrison turned to her. "I need you to think carefully. Did Trevor ever mention doing business with Russian investors? Did he ever travel to Russia or meet with anyone who might be connected to Volkov?" Naomi searched her memory. 3 years ago he went to Moscow for a week. He said it was a tech conference, but he came back with a big investment deal. He was excited, said it was going to take the company to the next level. But he never told me details. "That's when the Volkov payment started," Elena confirmed, checking her timeline. "Do you have any photos or documents from that trip?" "Maybe. I took his photo in the airport before he left. I might still have it on my phone." She pulled out her phone and scrolled back 3 years. There it was, Trevor at O'Hare International, smiling with his carry-on bag, excited about his trip to Moscow. She thought it was sweet at the time. Now it felt like evidence. "Send that to me," Morrison said. "Every piece of the timeline matters." Over the next week, the case built momentum. Morrison's team interviewed 3 of Trevor's former employees who confirmed that Naomi had been deeply involved in the early days of the company. She designed the original logo, helped write the business plan, and sat in on investor meetings. One employee even had old emails where Trevor specifically referred to Naomi as his business partner. Meanwhile, Dante's investigators uncovered more shell companies, more hidden accounts, and a pattern of financial deception that went back years. Trevor hadn't just hidden money during the divorce. He'd been hiding money from the IRS for most of the marriage. "He's going to jail," Dante said one evening as they reviewed the evidence. "Not immediately, but if the federal authorities get involved, Trevor is facing serious criminal charges." "I don't want him in jail," Naomi said quietly. "I just want what's fair. What's fair is you getting half of everything he hid. What's fair is him facing consequences for lying to you, to the IRS, and to the court. What's fair is him losing." Morrison scheduled depositions with Trevor's business partners, his accountant, and Rebecca. Trevor's legal team fought every step, filing motions to block discovery and delay proceedings. But Judge Crawford was now under investigation by the state bar, so a new judge had been assigned to the case. Judge Patricia Winters was known for being no-nonsense and impatient with legal games. The deposition with Rebecca Anderson happened on a Friday morning. Naomi watched through a video feed from another room while Morrison questioned her. Rebecca looked scared. Her pregnancy was more obvious now at 5 months, and she kept her hands folded over her belly protectively. "Ms. Anderson," Morrison said calmly, "how long have you been having a relationship with Trevor Blackwood?" 2 years, Rebecca answered quietly. "And during that time did Mr. Blackwood give you gifts?" "Yes." "Can you describe those gifts?" "Jewelry mostly. A diamond necklace. Earrings. A bracelet." "How much would you estimate those gifts cost?" Rebecca hesitated. "I don't know exactly." Morrison slid a document across the table. "According to credit card statements, Mr. Blackwood spent over $100,000 at Tiffany & Company during your relationship. Did those purchases go to you?" "Yes." "And did he tell you where the money came from?" "He said it was his money." "From the company." "Did you know he was still married at the time?" Rebecca's eyes filled with tears. "Yes." "But he said the marriage was over." "He said he was leaving her." "When did he tell you about his plans to divorce his wife?" "About 6 months into our relationship." Morrison pulled out another document. "So approximately 18 months ago, Mr. Blackwood told you he planned to divorce Naomi. Is that correct?" "Yes." "And yet he didn't file for divorce until 8 months ago. What happened during those 10 months?" "I don't know." "He said he was waiting for the right time. Did he discuss finances with you? Did he talk about protecting his assets during the divorce?" "Objection," Trevor's attorney said. "Speculation." "I'll rephrase," Morrison said smoothly. "Did Trevor Blackwood tell you directly that he was planning to ensure his wife received as little money as possible in the divorce?" Rebecca looked at Trevor's attorney, then back at Morrison. "Yes. He said she didn't deserve anything because she didn't work." "But Mrs. Blackwood did work, didn't she? She helped start the company. She contributed capital and time and ideas. Were you aware of that?" "No." "Trevor said he built the company himself." Morrison let that hang in the air. "One final question, Ms. Anderson. Is Trevor Blackwood the father of your child?" "Yes." "And did he know you were pregnant before filing for divorce?" "Yes." "We planned the pregnancy together." The deposition ended shortly after. Naomi sat in that room feeling numb. She'd suspected all of this, but hearing Rebecca confirm it so calmly made it real. Trevor had been planning to leave her for over a year. He'd gotten his mistress pregnant intentionally. He'd lied to everyone about how the company was built. Dante put his hand on her shoulder. "Are you okay?" "No," Naomi said honestly. "But I'm angry. And anger is better than sadness right now." "Good," Dante said. "Stay angry. We're going to need it." Morrison walked in with a satisfied expression. That deposition was a gift. Rebecca just confirmed Trevor committed fraud during the divorce proceedings. She confirmed he planned everything. And she confirmed he's been lying about your contributions to the company. "What happens now?" Naomi asked. "Now we go back to court and we destroy him." The article hit the Chicago Tribune's website on a Tuesday morning. Naomi was having coffee in her tiny condo when Dante called her. "Have you seen the news?" he asked. "What news?" "Check the Tribune. Business section." Naomi pulled out her laptop and navigated to the website. The headline made her breath catch. Blackwood Industries CEO under investigation for financial fraud and tax evasion. The article was detailed and damning. It named Trevor specifically, outlined the shell companies in the Cayman Islands, mentioned the connection to Volkov Enterprises, and quoted anonymous sources familiar with the divorce proceedings who confirmed Trevor had hidden assets from his wife and the court. "How did this happen?" Naomi asked. "We didn't. I called in a favor," Dante said. "I know a journalist who specializes in corporate corruption. I gave him enough information to start investigating and he found the rest. Everything in that article is documented and verified. Trevor can't claim it's lies." Naomi read through the piece. It mentioned the divorce, the prenup, and the judge who was now under investigation for judicial misconduct. It didn't name Naomi directly, but anyone who knew Trevor would understand who his wife was. "This is going to destroy him," she whispered. "That's the idea." Within an hour, the article had been picked up by business news websites across the country. Bloomberg ran a piece. The Wall Street Journal published a follow-up. By noon, reporters were camped outside Blackwood Industries' office building downtown. Trevor's company stock, which had been trading at $43 per share, dropped to $36 by the market close. Investors were panicking. Business partners were distancing themselves. Naomi's phone started ringing. Friends she hadn't heard from in months calling to ask if she was okay. People who'd sided with Trevor during the divorce suddenly pretending they'd always supported her. She ignored most of the calls, but one number made her pause. It was Trevor. "Against Morrison's advice," she answered. "You did this." Trevor's voice was shaking with rage. "You leaked this to the press." "I didn't leak anything," Naomi said calmly. "The truth leaked. There's a difference. You're trying to destroy me." "No, Trevor. You destroyed yourself. You lied to me, lied to the court, and apparently lied to the federal government. I'm just making sure everyone knows what kind of man you really are. I will bury you in legal fees. I will make sure you never get a cent." "You're done threatening me," Naomi interrupted. "You're under investigation for financial fraud. Your stock is tanking. Your business partners are running. And I have evidence of every single crime you committed during our marriage. So unless you want federal charges added to your problems, I suggest you stop calling me." She hung up. Her hands were shaking, but it felt good. For 10 years she'd been the supportive wife. The understanding partner. The woman who made excuses for Trevor's late nights and mysterious business trips. No more. Dante arrived at her condo an hour later with Morrison. "That was stupid," Morrison said bluntly. "I told you not to engage with him." "I know. But I needed to hear his voice one more time. Needed to know that he finally understands I'm not backing down." "Well, you got your wish. Trevor's legal team just filed an emergency motion to prevent any further media leaks. They're claiming you violated confidentiality agreements." "Did I?" "No. Everything in that article was public record or legally obtained information. They have no case. But they're desperate." Morrison opened his briefcase. "Speaking of desperate, I received this an hour ago." He handed Naomi a document. It was a settlement offer from Trevor's legal team. He was offering her $5 million to drop all claims and sign a non-disclosure agreement. $5 million? Naomi looked up. "The company is worth over $300 million. "Exactly. He's offering you less than 2% of the marital assets in exchange for your silence. It's an insult." "But it's more than the prenup gave her," Dante pointed out. "He's scared." Morrison smiled. "He's terrified. The article exposed him. Now he's facing investigations from the IRS, the SEC, and possibly the FBI if the Volkov connection proves true. He wants to make this go away quietly." "What should I do?" Naomi asked. "Reject it," Morrison said immediately. "You're entitled to half of everything Trevor acquired during the marriage. That's at least $150 million. Don't settle for crumbs." Naomi looked at the settlement offer. $5 million was more money than she'd ever imagined having. It would set her up for life. She could travel, start a business, live comfortably forever. But it wasn't justice. "Reject it," she said. "I want to see Trevor in court. I want him to answer for what he did." Morrison nodded approvingly. "That's what I wanted to hear. We have a hearing scheduled for next Friday. Judge Winters is going to review our motion to vacate the original verdict. With the new evidence we've gathered, I'm confident we'll win." "What about Rebecca?" Naomi asked. "The article mentioned the affair but didn't name her. Is she going to come after me?" "She can't," Dante said. "Everything about her is in the public record from the divorce filing. We didn't leak her name, it was already public. Besides, she has bigger problems. If Trevor's company collapses, he won't be able to support her and the baby." As if on cue, Naomi's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Please stop attacking Trevor. I'm pregnant and the stress is affecting my health. Whatever happened between you two, please leave me out of it. It was Rebecca. Naomi showed the text to Morrison and Dante. Don't respond, Morrison said immediately. But she's pregnant. She's scared. She's the woman who had an affair with your husband for 2 years, Dante said coldly. She's the woman who helped him plan to leave you with nothing. She doesn't deserve your sympathy. Naomi stared at the text. Part of her felt bad for Rebecca. She was young, pregnant, and tied to a man who was currently imploding. But Dante was right. Rebecca had made her choices. She'd known Trevor was married. She'd helped him hide assets and plan the divorce. I won't respond, Naomi said. But I won't go after her either. This is between me and Trevor. Morrison packed up his briefcase. Good. Stay focused. We have 1 week until the hearing. Let Trevor panic. Let him make mistakes. We're going to win this, Naomi. I guarantee it. After they left, Naomi sat alone in her condo and thought about the past few weeks. 1 month ago, she'd sat in a courtroom and lost everything. Now Trevor's company was in free fall, he was under investigation by multiple federal agencies, and she had a real chance at justice. She pulled up the Tribune article on her laptop and read it again. This time she didn't feel scared or sad. She felt powerful. Trevor had thought she was weak. Thought she'd accept whatever scraps he threw at her. Thought she'd disappear quietly and let him live his perfect life with Rebecca and their baby. He'd been wrong about everything. Judge Patricia Winters had a reputation for being tough and fair. She was 55 years old, had been on the bench for 20 years, and didn't tolerate nonsense from anyone. When Naomi walked into her courtroom the following Friday, she felt more nervous than she had during the entire original trial. The courtroom was packed. News of the hearing had spread and reporters filled the back rows. Trevor sat at the defendant's table with 3 lawyers, all looking tense. Rebecca wasn't there. Apparently, her doctor had advised her to avoid stressful situations. Morrison sat beside Naomi with 2 associates. Dante sat in the front row of the gallery directly behind her, his presence solid and reassuring. Judge Winters entered and everyone stood. She sat down, arranged her papers, and looked directly at Morrison. Counselor, you filed an emergency motion to vacate Judge Crawford's verdict in this divorce case. This is highly unusual. You better have extraordinary evidence to support such a motion. We do, Your Honor, Morrison said, standing. If it please the court, I'd like to present evidence of judicial misconduct, financial fraud, and a prenuptial agreement obtained under duress and false pretenses. For the next hour, Morrison laid out their case. He showed photos of Judge Crawford playing golf with Trevor's attorney. He presented emails between the judge and Richard Thornton that suggested an inappropriate relationship. He documented 8 social interactions between them during the pendency of the divorce proceedings. Trevor's lead attorney, a new lawyer named Philip Grant, tried to object multiple times, but Judge Winters shut him down. Sit down, Mr. Grant. If even half of what Mr. Morrison is alleging is true, this is a serious breach of judicial ethics. I want to hear everything. Next, Morrison presented the bank statements showing Naomi's $50,000 contribution to starting Blackwood Industries. He showed emails and texts where Trevor discussed business decisions with Naomi and credited her with key ideas. He presented testimony from former employees who confirmed Naomi had been an active business partner in the company's early days. The prenuptial agreement claims Mrs. Blackwood made no financial or intellectual contributions to the company, Morrison said. That claim is demonstrably false. The prenup was obtained through fraud. Then came the financial evidence. Elena Rodriguez testified about the shell companies, the Volkov Enterprises payments, and the $200,000 Trevor spent on his affair with Rebecca. She showed how Trevor had hidden millions of dollars in assets during the divorce proceedings. Your Honor, Morrison said, Mr. Blackwood committed fraud on multiple levels. He lied about his wife's contributions. He hid assets. He used marital funds to conduct an affair. And he did all of this while a judge with whom his attorney had an inappropriate relationship presided over the case. Judge Winters looked at Philip Grant. Mr. Grant, I hope you have a compelling response. Grant stood up slowly. He looked defeated before he even spoke. Your Honor, my client maintains that Judge Crawford acted appropriately and that the prenuptial agreement was validly executed. However, in light of the new evidence presented, we would like to request a continuance to. Denied, Judge Winters said sharply. You've had months to investigate your client's finances. The fact that Mrs. Blackwood's team found evidence of fraud that you somehow missed is not grounds for delay. Do you have any evidence to refute what Mr. Morrison has presented? We dispute the characterization of Mrs. Blackwood's contributions to the company. Do you have evidence? Yes or no? Grant hesitated. Not at this time, Your Honor. Then sit down. Judge Winters turned to the gallery. I want all reporters out of this courtroom. What I'm about to say is not for publication until I issue my formal ruling. The reporters grumbled but left. Once the courtroom was clear except for the parties and their lawyers, Judge Winters looked directly at Trevor. Mr. Blackwood, stand up. Trevor stood slowly. He looked older than he had just a few weeks ago. The stress was showing. I have been a judge for 20 years, Judge Winters said, her voice cold. In that time I have seen many cases of marital misconduct. But I have rarely seen fraud as extensive as what has been presented here today. You lied to your wife. You lied to the court. You hid assets. You committed financial crimes. And you did all of this while a judge who had an inappropriate relationship with your attorney gave you everything you wanted. Your Honor, I'm not finished. Judge Winters's voice cracked like a whip. You stood in a courtroom and watched your wife lose everything because of a prenuptial agreement that you obtained through fraud. You showed no remorse, no conscience, no decency. Well, Mr. Blackwood, your luck has run out. She looked down at her papers, then back up. I am issuing an emergency order vacating Judge Crawford's verdict in its entirety. The prenuptial agreement is declared invalid due to fraud and duress. All assets acquired during the marriage will be considered marital property subject to equitable distribution. Naomi felt Dante's hand squeeze her shoulder from behind. Furthermore, Judge Winters continued, I am ordering an immediate freeze on all of Mr. Blackwood's assets pending a full forensic accounting of marital property. Mr. Blackwood, you will not sell, transfer, or hide any additional assets. If you attempt to do so, you will be held in contempt of court. Your Honor, Grant started, but Judge Winters cut him off. I'm not done. Mr. Blackwood, you will also provide complete financial disclosure within 30 days. Every bank account, every shell company, every hidden asset. If I find out you've held anything back, I will refer this case to federal prosecutors. Do you understand? Trevor's voice was barely a whisper. Yes, Your Honor. Finally, I am awarding Mrs. Blackwood temporary alimony of $50,000 per month retroactive to the date of the original verdict. That money will come from Mr. Blackwood's personal accounts, not the business. We will reconvene in 60 days for a final hearing on asset distribution. Judge Winters looked at Naomi. Mrs. Blackwood, I want to apologize to you on behalf of the judicial system. You were failed by Judge Crawford and by the process. I intend to make sure justice is served in this case. Do you understand? Yes, Your Honor, Naomi said, her voice shaking. Thank you. This hearing is adjourned. The gavel came down. Naomi sat frozen in her chair. It was over. The verdict was vacated. The prenup was invalid. Trevor's assets were frozen. They'd won. Morrison turned to her with a smile. Congratulations, Naomi. You just got your life back. Trevor tried to approach their table, but his lawyers pulled him away. Naomi caught a glimpse of his face, pale, shocked, destroyed. She felt no sympathy, only satisfaction. Outside the courtroom, Dante pulled her into a hug. I told you, he said. I told you we'd fix this. You did more than fix it, Naomi said, tears running down her face. You saved me. No, Dante said, pulling back to look at her. You saved yourself. I just gave you the tools to fight. You did the rest. Morrison joined them in the hallway. This is a huge victory, but we're not done yet. We still need to go through the asset distribution process. Trevor's team will fight every step of the way. But with his finances frozen and Judge Winters presiding, I'm confident you'll end up with at least 50% of everything. How much is that? Based on our preliminary assessment? Approximately $150 million. Naomi's legs nearly gave out. $150 million. From losing everything to becoming wealthier than she'd ever imagined. What about Trevor? She asked. What happens to him? He'll survive financially, but his reputation is destroyed. And if the federal investigators find what I think they'll find regarding Volkov Enterprises, he might face criminal charges. They walked out of the courthouse into the bright afternoon sun. Reporters immediately swarmed them, but Morrison handled it professionally, giving a brief statement about judicial misconduct and justice being served. Naomi let Dante guide her to a waiting car. She felt numb, overwhelmed, and strangely calm all at once. 1 hour after Judge Crawford's original verdict, Dante had called her. Now, 1 month later, everything had changed. Trevor had lost. She had won. And her life could finally begin again. The 60 days between hearings passed in a blur of activity. Elena and her team of forensic accountants worked around the clock to untangle Trevor's finances. What they found was staggering. Trevor had hidden over $90 million in offshore accounts. He'd created fake consulting companies that existed only on paper to move money out of Blackwood Industries. He'd lied on tax returns for 7 years. And the connection to Volkov Enterprises was even worse than they'd initially discovered. Trevor had knowingly accepted money from a Russian firm that was funneling cash for sanctioned oligarchs. The FBI opened an investigation. The IRS launched an audit. Trevor's business partners started abandoning ship, selling their shares and distancing themselves from the company. Naomi watched it all unfold from her tiny condo, feeling like she was witnessing karma in action. Rebecca gave birth to a baby girl 3 weeks before the final hearing. Naomi saw the announcement on social media, a photo of a tiny infant with Trevor's dark hair. She felt nothing looking at it. No jealousy, no anger, just a strange detachment. That was Trevor's new family. His new life. It had nothing to do with her anymore. The final hearing took place on a Wednesday morning in late September. The courtroom was less crowded this time. The reporters had moved on to other stories, and the drama had cooled into legal procedure. Judge Winters reviewed the forensic accounting reports, the asset valuations, and the final settlement proposals. Trevor's legal team had fought hard to protect his interests, but with his finances exposed and the prenup invalidated, they had little leverage. After reviewing all submitted documents and testimony, Judge Winters said, "This court finds that the marital estate consists of assets totaling approximately $320 million. This includes full valuation of Blackwood Industries' real estate holdings, investment accounts, and offshore assets that Mr. Blackwood attempted to hide." She looked at Trevor, who sat slumped in his chair. "Mr. Blackwood, your conduct during these proceedings has been reprehensible. You committed fraud, perjury, and obstruction of justice. The only reason you are not currently facing criminal charges is that the U.S. Attorney's Office has not yet completed their investigation. But make no mistake, those charges are likely coming." Trevor said nothing. "Mrs. Blackwood," Judge Winters turned to Naomi, "you are awarded 50% of all marital assets. That totals $160 million after accounting for legal fees and outstanding debts. Additionally, Mr. Blackwood will pay retroactive alimony of $50,000 per month for the past 2 months, plus ongoing alimony of $25,000 per month for 5 years. Naomi heard the numbers but couldn't quite process them. $160 million. It didn't feel real. Furthermore, the judge continued, Mrs. Blackwood is awarded 50% ownership of Blackwood Industries. She may choose to sell those shares back to the company or maintain her ownership stake. That decision is hers alone. Morrison leaned over and whispered, "Congratulations. You're now one of the wealthiest women in Chicago. The real estate holdings will be divided as follows." Judge Winters read from her ruling. "The penthouse apartment goes to Mrs. Blackwood. The beach house in Michigan goes to Mr. Blackwood. The investment properties will be sold and the proceeds split equally." Trevor's lawyer started to object, but Judge Winters shut him down with a look. "Mr. Grant, your client is lucky I'm not awarding Mrs. Blackwood more as compensation for his fraud. I suggest you accept this ruling gracefully." She signed several documents and handed them to the clerk. "This divorce is finalized. All asset transfers must be completed within 90 days. Mr. Blackwood, you are ordered to cooperate fully with the transfer process. Any attempts to hide or move assets will result in contempt charges. Do you understand?" "Yes, Your Honor," Trevor said quietly. "This case is closed." The gavel came down one final time. Naomi stood up slowly. It was really over. The marriage, the fighting, the legal battles, all of it was finished. She was divorced, wealthy, and free. Trevor stood up and looked at her across the courtroom. For a moment their eyes met. She saw desperation in his face, maybe even regret. But she felt nothing. He was a stranger now. A man who'd once been important to her but who now meant less than nothing. She turned away and walked out of the courtroom with Morrison and Dante flanking her. Outside, Morrison gave another brief statement to the handful of reporters who'd bothered to show up. Naomi stayed silent, letting her lawyer handle everything. In the car, Dante hugged her tight. "You did it," he said. "It's over. You won." "We won," Naomi corrected. "I couldn't have done any of this without you." "True," Dante said with a grin. "But now comes the fun part. Deciding what to do with $160 million. Naomi laughed. Felt good to laugh. She couldn't remember the last time she'd felt genuinely happy. That evening, Morrison's team hosted a small celebration dinner at an upscale restaurant downtown. Elena was there, along with several associates who'd worked on the case. They toasted to justice and new beginnings. "What will you do now?" Elena asked Naomi over dessert. "I don't know yet," Naomi admitted. "I've been so focused on the divorce that I haven't thought about what comes after." "You should travel," one of the associates suggested. "See the world. Enjoy your freedom." "Or invest," Dante said. "Start a business. Build something new." Naomi thought about it. She could do anything now. Travel, invest, start over completely. The possibilities were endless and overwhelming. "I think," she said slowly, "I want to help people. Women going through what I went through. Women who don't have the resources to fight back against powerful husbands and corrupt judges." Morrison smiled. "A foundation? Maybe. Or a legal fund. Something that gives women access to good lawyers and forensic accountants and investigators. Something that levels the playing field." "That's a beautiful idea," Elena said. "And with your resources, you could help hundreds of women." "Thousands," Dante corrected. "If you do it right, you could change lives." Naomi raised her glass. "To new beginnings. And to making sure no other woman goes through what I went through." Everyone clinked glasses and drank. Later that night, alone in her condo, Naomi looked at her phone. There was a text from Trevor. "I'm sorry. For everything. I know you won't forgive me, but I needed to say it. I was wrong. About all of it. I hope you find happiness." She stared at the message for a long time. Part of her wanted to respond. Wanted to tell him that sorry wasn't enough. That he'd destroyed 10 years of her life. That his apology meant nothing now. But another part of her just felt tired. Tired of being angry. Tired of thinking about him. So she deleted the message without responding. Whatever closure Trevor needed, he'd have to find it somewhere else. She owed him nothing. She opened her laptop and started researching nonprofits that helped women in difficult divorces. Organizations that provided legal assistance and financial counseling. As she read, an idea started forming. Something bigger than just a foundation. Something that could actually change the system. She called Dante. "I know what I want to do," she said when he answered. "Tell me." "I want to start an organization that helps women navigate high-conflict divorces. But not just legal help. I want to provide forensic accounting, therapy, career counseling, and financial planning. A complete support system. And I want to expose corrupt judges and lawyers who enable abusive husbands." Dante was quiet for a moment. "That's ambitious." "I have $160 million. I can afford to be ambitious." "You'll need a team. Lawyers, accountants, therapists, administrators. I'll hire the best. People who actually care about helping women, not just collecting fees. You'll need office space, technology, marketing." "Dante," Naomi interrupted gently. "Will you help me?" "Of course," he said immediately. "I'll do whatever you need. Financial planning, investment strategy, business structure. I'm in." Naomi smiled. "Thank you. What are you going to call it?" She thought for a moment. "The Phoenix Foundation. Rising from the ashes." "Perfect," Dante said. "When do we start?" "Tomorrow," Naomi replied. "We start building tomorrow." She hung up and looked around her tiny condo. She'd lived here for 2 months now, and it had felt like a prison at first. A reminder of everything she'd lost. But now it felt different. Now it was the place where she'd started over. Where she'd found her strength. Where she'd become someone new. Tomorrow she'd start looking for office space for the foundation. She'd start hiring staff. Start building something that mattered. But tonight she was just going to sit in her small living room and breathe. Just breathe and know that she'd survived. More than survived. She'd won. 6 months after the final verdict, Naomi stood in the lobby of a newly renovated building in downtown Chicago. The space had been an old bank, and she transformed it into the headquarters of the Phoenix Foundation. The marble floors gleamed. Glass offices lined the walls. In the center of the lobby, a brass phoenix sculpture rose from flames, 12 feet tall and magnificent. "It's perfect," Dante said, standing beside her. "Dad would be proud." Naomi blinked back tears. Their father had always taught them to help others. To use whatever advantages they had to make the world better. This foundation was exactly what he would have wanted. The Phoenix Foundation officially opened in January, 6 months after Judge Winters's final ruling. Naomi had spent those months building it carefully. She'd hired a staff of 25 people. lawyers, forensic accountants, therapists, financial planners, and victim advocates. She'd partnered with law schools to provide pro bono representation. She'd established relationships with women's shelters and domestic violence organizations. The foundation offered complete support for women going through difficult divorces. Legal representation, financial investigation, therapy, career counseling, and even temporary housing if needed. Every service was free for clients who qualified based on need. Wealthy women could use the services too, but they paid market rates, which funded help for women who couldn't afford it. In the first 6 months, the foundation had helped 83 women. Some cases were simple, just needing a good lawyer to negotiate fair custody arrangements. Others were complex, involving hidden assets and financial fraud like Naomi's own case. Each woman who walked through their doors received personalized attention and comprehensive support. Elena Rodriguez had left her private practice to become the foundation's chief forensic accountant. Morrison's firm partnered with them on complex litigation. Dante handled all the financial management and investment strategy, ensuring the foundation's endowment would last for generations. Naomi herself worked as the executive director, overseeing operations and meeting with every client personally. She discovered that she was good at this, connecting with women in crisis, helping them see a path forward, giving them hope when everything seemed lost. On this particular morning, she had a meeting with a potential major donor. Julian Hayes, an architect who'd read about the foundation in the Tribune and wanted to contribute to their building fund. They were planning to open satellite offices in 3 other cities, and they needed capital to make it happen. Julian arrived exactly on time. He was tall with warm brown eyes and an easy smile. Naomi gave him a tour of the headquarters, explaining their services and showing him their success stories on the wall. Photos of women they'd helped, each with a brief story of transformation. "This is incredible," Julian said, studying the wall. "You've built something really special here." "Thank you. It's been a lot of work, but seeing these women rebuild their lives makes it worthwhile." "I read about your divorce case," Julian said carefully. "I hope that's not too forward, but I wanted you to know what you've done with that experience, turning it into something that helps others, that takes real strength." Naomi felt herself blush. "I had help. My brother mostly. And a team of people who believed I deserved justice. Still, a lot of people would have taken the money and disappeared. You chose to do something meaningful with it." They spent 2 hours discussing the foundation's expansion plans. Julian committed to donating $500,000 toward the building fund. But more than that, he offered his architecture services pro bono to design the satellite offices. "I design buildings for a living," he said. "But I've always wanted to use my skills for something that matters. This matters." "Thank you," Naomi said sincerely. "We appreciate your support. Would you like to grab coffee sometime?" Julian asked as he was leaving. "To discuss the office designs, of course. But also just to talk. You seem like an interesting person." Naomi hesitated. She hadn't dated anyone since the divorce. Hadn't even thought about relationships. Her therapist said she needed time to heal before jumping into anything new. But Julian's smile was kind. His eyes were honest. And something about him felt safe. "I'd like that," she said. They exchanged numbers and set a coffee date for the following week. After he left, Dante appeared from his office down the hall. "Was that the architect?" "Yes. He's donating $500,000 and designing our satellite offices for free." "That's generous." Dante grinned. "Also, I noticed the way he looked at you." "Stop," Naomi said, but she was smiling. "I'm just saying it's okay to be happy. It's okay to move on." "I know. I'm happy. Happier than I've been in years, actually." And it was true. Despite everything she'd been through, the betrayal, the divorce, the legal battles, she felt genuinely happy now. She woke up every morning with purpose. She spent her days helping women in crisis. She was building something that would outlast her and help thousands of people. That evening, Naomi had dinner with a new client named Sophia. She was 35, married to a tech executive who'd been hiding cryptocurrency assets and manipulating their children against her. Sophia had no family support and limited financial resources. She'd found the Phoenix Foundation through a women's shelter. "I don't know how I'll ever repay you," Sophia said over dinner at a quiet restaurant. "You don't have to repay us," Naomi said. "That's not how this works. We help you get through this, and someday when you're stable and successful, maybe you help someone else. That's how we build something better." "Did someone help you?" "My brother did. He came home from Singapore and basically saved my life. Without him, I'd have nothing right now. But you rebuilt. You created all this." Sophia gestured vaguely toward the foundation. How did you find the strength? Naomi thought about it. I got angry. For a long time I was just sad and scared. But then I got angry at the injustice of it all. Angry that my husband lied and cheated and stole from me. Angry that the legal system almost let him get away with it. That anger gave me energy to fight back. I'm angry too, Sophia admitted. But I also feel guilty. Like maybe I should have seen the signs. Should have been a better wife. Don't do that to yourself, Naomi said firmly. That's what abusers want us to think. That it's our fault. That we deserved it. But you didn't deserve this. You trusted someone who violated that trust. That's on him, not you. Sophia's eyes filled with tears. Thank you. I needed to hear that. They spent another hour talking about Sophia's case, her children, and her plans for the future. By the end of dinner, Sophia looked lighter somehow. More hopeful. That's why Naomi did this. Those moments when a woman realized she wasn't alone. When she understood that her story could have a different ending. Those moments made everything worthwhile. Later that night, Naomi got an email notification. It was from the Illinois State Bar Association. Judge Crawford had been formally censured and removed from the bench for judicial misconduct. He was barred from ever serving as a judge again. Naomi forwarded the email to Morrison with a simple message, "Justice." He replied immediately, "Sweet, sweet justice." She also checked on Trevor occasionally through public records and news articles. Blackwood Industries had been sold to a private equity firm. Trevor had kept some wealth from the sale, but nothing close to what he'd had before. The FBI investigation into his Volkov Enterprises connections was still ongoing. Rebecca had left him, according to social media rumors, taking their daughter and moving to California. Naomi felt no satisfaction in his downfall. No joy in his suffering. She just felt nothing. He was irrelevant to her life now. Her phone buzzed with a text from Julian, "Looking forward to coffee tomorrow. Any preferences on where?" She smiled and typed back, "Anywhere quiet where we can actually talk. I want to hear about your architecture projects." Deal. See you at 10 a.m. Naomi set down her phone and looked around her small condo. She could afford to buy a mansion now. Could move into the penthouse that she'd been awarded in the divorce settlement. But she liked this small space. It represented her independence. Her new beginning. Eventually she'd move somewhere bigger. Maybe design her own home with Julian's help. But for now this was enough. She was enough. And that was everything. 1 year after Judge Crawford's original verdict, Naomi stood on a stage in front of 300 people. The Phoenix Foundation was hosting its first annual gala, a fundraiser to support their expansion into 5 more cities. The ballroom at the Four Seasons was packed with donors, supporters, and women the foundation had helped. Naomi wore a blue dress that Julian had helped her pick out. They'd been dating for 6 months now, taking things slow and steady. He sat in the front row, smiling up at her with genuine pride. Dante sat beside him equally proud, along with Morrison and Elena and the rest of the foundation's team. "Good evening," Naomi began, her voice steady despite her nerves. "A year ago I stood in a courtroom and lost everything. My marriage, my home, my financial security, everything I'd built for 10 years was taken away because of a prenuptial agreement I'd signed while grieving my father's death." The audience was silent, listening intently. "For 1 hour after that verdict I felt completely hopeless. I saw no path forward. No way to rebuild. I was 38 years old with $45,000 a year in alimony and nothing else. But then my brother called me. And everything changed." She looked at Dante, who nodded encouragingly. "Dante came home from Singapore and helped me fight back. He brought in lawyers and investigators and forensic accountants. We discovered that my ex-husband had committed fraud, hiding assets, lying to the court, breaking federal laws. We exposed judicial misconduct. And eventually we won." Applause filled the room. "But winning the legal battle wasn't enough," Naomi continued, "because I realized something important. I'd had resources to fight back. A brother with money and connections, access to excellent lawyers, and eventually, a settlement that made me wealthy. Most women don't have those advantages. Most women facing corrupt husbands and biased judges have no way to fight back. They lose everything and have no path to justice." She paused, letting that sink in. "So I decided to use my settlement to create the Phoenix Foundation. A place where women could get the support they need to fight back. Legal representation, financial investigation, therapy, career counseling, everything necessary to rebuild after betrayal. In our first year we've helped over 200 women. We've recovered over $50 million in hidden assets. We've exposed 3 corrupt judges and 5 lawyers who were enabling financial abuse. More applause, louder this time. But we're just getting started. Tonight, we're raising money to open satellite offices in Atlanta, Houston, Seattle, Denver, and Miami. We want to help thousands of women across the country. We want to change the system that allows powerful men to abuse their wives and get away with it. We want to create a world where every woman has access to justice, regardless of her income or connections. Naomi looked out at the audience. Donors who'd already committed millions, women whose lives had been transformed by the foundation's work, lawyers and accountants who joined their mission. A year ago I thought my life was over. But actually it was just beginning. The divorce didn't destroy me. Transformed me. It showed me what I was capable of when I stopped accepting injustice and started fighting back. And now I want to help other women discover that same strength. She raised her glass. So thank you for being here tonight. Thank you for supporting this mission. Thank you for believing that every woman deserves justice. Together we're going to change lives. Together we're going to build something that matters. Together we're going to make sure that no woman has to face betrayal alone. The audience stood and applauded. Naomi stepped off the stage, slightly overwhelmed by the response. Julian was the first to reach her, pulling her into a hug. "That was incredible," he said. "You're incredible." "I was so nervous," Naomi admitted. "You didn't show it at all. You were confident and powerful and inspiring." Dante appeared next, hugging her tight. "Dad would be so proud," he whispered. "I'm so proud. I couldn't have done any of this without you," Naomi said. "You saved me." "We saved each other," Dante replied. "That's what family does." The rest of the evening passed in a blur of conversations with donors and supporters. By the end of the night, they'd raised $12 million. More than enough to open all 5 satellite offices and fund operations for 3 years. As the last guests were leaving, Naomi received a text from an unknown number. "I saw the article about your gala. Congratulations on the foundation. You're doing good work. I'm sorry for everything. I hope you can find it in your heart to forgive me someday. Trevor." She stared at the message for a long moment. Then she showed it to Dante. "What are you going to say?" he asked. "Nothing," Naomi said, deleting the text. "I have nothing to say to him. He's part of my past and I'm focused on my future." "Good answer." They rode home together in silence, both exhausted but satisfied. Naomi looked out the car window at Chicago passing by, the city where she'd built a life with Trevor, lost everything and then built something better. "Do you ever miss him?" Dante asked suddenly. "No," Naomi said honestly. "I miss the person I thought he was. I miss the marriage I thought we had. But that person and that marriage never really existed. It was all an illusion. So no, I don't miss him. I'm grateful to him actually." "Grateful?" "For showing me who I really am. For forcing me to find my own strength. If he hadn't betrayed me, I never would have started the foundation. Never would have helped all those women. Never would have discovered that I'm capable of so much more than just being someone's wife." Dante smiled. "You're kind of amazing, you know that?" "I learned from the best," Naomi said, squeezing his hand. When they reached her condo, she still hadn't moved, though she'd bought the unit next door and combined them into one larger space. Naomi sat on her couch and reflected on the past year. 1 year ago, Judge Crawford had read his verdict and destroyed her life. 1 hour later, Dante had called and everything changed. Now, 12 months later, she was running a foundation that helped hundreds of women. She was dating a kind, supportive man who treated her with respect. She had her brother back in her life. She had purpose and meaning and genuine happiness. Trevor had thought winning in court meant he'd won everything. But he'd been wrong. He'd lost the only thing that actually mattered: his integrity. His reputation was destroyed. His business was gone. His marriage to Rebecca had fallen apart. He was facing potential criminal charges. And meanwhile, Naomi was thriving. She pulled out her laptop and opened her email. There were messages from 3 women who'd found the foundation's website and wanted help. She responded to each one personally, promising they'd hear from a case manager within 24 hours. Then she opened a blank document and started writing. Not a speech or a proposal. Just thoughts. Reflections on the past year and lessons learned. She wrote about the importance of having people who believe in you. About the power of anger when channeled productively. About how betrayal can be the catalyst for transformation if you're willing to do the hard work. About how justice isn't always served by the legal system, but sometimes you can force the system to work if you fight hard enough. She wrote until she was too tired to continue, then saved the document and went to bed. The next morning, Julian picked her up for brunch. They sat at a cafe overlooking the lake, drinking coffee and talking about his new project, a community center in a low-income neighborhood that would provide after-school programs for kids. "I've been thinking about what you said," Julian told her. "About using my skills for something meaningful. I want to do more projects like this. Less luxury condos for rich clients, more buildings that actually help people." "That's wonderful," Naomi said. "You inspired me. Watching you build the foundation, seeing how passionate you are about helping people, it made me realize I want that too. I want to wake up every day knowing my work matters. You don't need my permission to do that. I know. But I wanted you to know that you've changed my life. Made me think about what really matters." Naomi reached across the table and took his hand. "You've changed my life too. You showed me that not all men are like Trevor. That some men are genuinely kind and supportive and trustworthy." "I'm not perfect," Julian warned with a smile. "Nobody is. But you're honest. You're respectful. You don't play games. That's all I need." They finished brunch and walked along the lakefront. It was a beautiful May morning, warm and sunny with a breeze off the water. Naomi felt completely at peace. Her phone buzzed with a text from the foundation. One of the women they'd been helping had just won her divorce case, receiving full custody of her children and a fair financial settlement. The case had taken 6 months, but they'd finally gotten justice. "Good news?" Julian asked, seeing her smile. "Great news. Another successful case." "How many is that now?" 243 women helped in our first year, with probably another 100 cases still pending." "That's incredible." "It's a start," Naomi said. "But there's so much more to do. So many women still suffering. So many corrupt judges and lawyers still getting away with enabling abuse. You'll get there. One case at a time." They walked in comfortable silence for a while. Naomi thought about the woman she'd been a year ago, scared, defeated, hopeless. And she thought about the woman she was now, strong, purposeful, happy. The billionaire had won in court 1 hour before Dante showed up. But that was just the beginning of the story. The real story was what came after. The fight back. The transformation. The victory that mattered. Everything had changed that day. But not because Dante arrived with money and connections. Those things helped, certainly. But the real change happened inside Naomi herself. The moment she decided to stop accepting injustice. The moment she chose to fight. The moment she discovered she was stronger than she'd ever imagined. Trevor had thought he'd won. But he'd only won a battle. Naomi had won the war. And more importantly, she'd won herself back. That evening, Naomi stood on her balcony watching the sunset over Chicago. Her phone rang. It was a woman named Patricia who'd found the Phoenix Foundation online. She was crying, desperate for help. Her husband was a powerful lawyer who'd been hiding assets and manipulating the legal system. She had nowhere else to turn. "You called the right place," Naomi said calmly. "Tell me everything and we'll help you. You're not alone anymore." As Patricia told her story, Naomi made notes and promised they'd start working on her case immediately. Another woman who needed help. Another fight for justice. Another chance to make a difference. This was her life now. And she wouldn't change it for anything. The billionaire had won in court. 1 hour later, her brother showed up. And everything changed. But the real change wasn't what Dante did. It was what Naomi became. A fighter. A survivor. A woman who refused to be defeated. And that made all the difference.